And welcome back to the Financially Simple Experience. Today, I want to tackle a topic that I'm addressing more and more, and our business advisors are addressing more and more. It's a topic that I haven't heard as much in the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years of business and producing this podcast as I am now. And perhaps the reason why it's surfacing so much more today than it has over the last few years is because of what transpired in 2020. Whenever many companies were forced into some sort of a closure or a stall, whereas other companies were forced into expedience. They were forced into multiplicative growth. It was like paradigms there. We had some who were rapidly accelerating and some who were screeching to a halt. COVID rocked our world. And as that affected our business, we began to see cracks within the business itself. Where we thought we had a sure thing, we now noticed that the business had some vulnerabilities. Whenever I first began my business, I can remember my very first sale. I was 15 years of age. We had a family friend who needed some grass cutting, and Mom was going to teach my brother and I how to work, how to be business owners. And I sold, if you want to call it that, this individual on a maintenance program of like $25 a month. It wasn't hardly anything. We were probably, in fact, we should have been paying them. The work was shoddy. It wasn't very good. We were 15 years old. We were doing the best we could. We were having fun playing, but we were learning. But I can still remember that person. In fact, they're still a friend today. When we first began our business, we would work with anybody, oftentimes, as they say, who could fog a mirror. But now as our businesses have grown, we begin looking at vulnerabilities within our business, and we begin learning concepts like value and profitability and throughput and production and efficiency and so many more concepts that candidly weren't even a figment of our imagination for those of us who launched our business from the ground up as a grassroots movement. Now, perhaps you bought your business and you had a pool of customers already, but no doubt you can remember more than likely your first sale. The first time whenever you were the person who won somebody's trust, that they believed in you and the product that you provide. But as our business grows, we have to think a little different. Jim Collins wrote a classic book called Good to Great. I reference this book many times on the podcast because most business people at some point have read this book. And he uses a simple analogy that says, get on the bus. Get on the bus. And he walks through this idea that you've got to find the right people to let them on the bus. And then when you get them on the bus, you've got to get them in the right seats on the bus. Now, I get that Good to Great is talking about employees, but the same concept is applicable with our customers and specifically identifying the customer persona. So I want to walk through the idea on how we can identify the customer that we are made to work for, the customer who is going to see the highest value in what we do. I want to take the approach because if we can identify that customer, if we take the time to learn how to do this, and we can identify that customer, then our businesses become more profitable, valuable, fluid. They become more synergistic in nature. So many things come from the right customer. One of my favorite books on business is called it deals with the concept called Theory of Constraints. And Dr. Goodbread wrote The Theory of Constraints, and it clearly states, and I quote, "Constraints determine the performance of a system. A constraint is anything that prevents a system from achieving a higher performance relative to its goal. A system is any collective or interconnected parts sharing a common goal." Now, when we look at that concept, a constraint can be not having the right customers to match your particular product or your particular service. The idea behind the theory of constraints is that your business can only handle so many customers. You can only push so much fluid through a water hose. You can't force a swimming pool amount of water through a water hose at one time. You could not take the Niagara Falls and force it through a garden hose. It just doesn't work. Your business is the same way. It can only handle so many customers at any given time. And if you try to push too many customers through the business, you're going to bust the business. You're going to break it. You're going to go into an atrophy mode. Again, trying to push Niagara Falls to a water hose, it's not going to work. The water hose is going to find itself at the bottom of the falls because it can't physically hold up to it. Where at the same time, if you don't have the right persona pushing enough fluid through your business, or my water hose analogy, then your business is going to flail, or perhaps founder is going to go out of business. So if we understand that our business can only absorb so many customers, we want to make sure that we deal with the right customers. Another principle that we need to set as a backdrop, besides the theory of constraint, is the Pareto Principle. Now, you may know this as the rule of 80-20. It asserts that 80% of the outcomes or outputs is a result of 20% of the causes or inputs. And that's pretty much for any given event. And I would suggest that if you dissected your clientele, you would find the rule of 80-20 to be the same, to be true for your business, that you have roughly about 20% of your clients producing 80% of the business. And you have about 80% of your clients producing 20% of your business. So when we apply these two rules to our business, we realize we can only handle so much, but in reality, we probably have 80% of our clients producing less than 20% of our revenue. We end up with a persona problem. We end up providing our goods or services to customers, candidly, that aren't proper for our business model. So let's dissect how. How do we provide or define the perfect persona? I often tell this story when I'm speaking. I love speaking. I love getting on stage. I love using inflection and dynamics and tonal changes and walking about. I have several speaking events this year, and I'm excited about that. And I speak about this principle whenever I give one particular speech, and it's this. I can remember sitting across the table from a client. This is back in 2005. 2005 for me was a pivotal year because that was the year that my firstborn came into the world. Emily and I were expecting. We were expecting our Savannah, this beautiful baby girl today that candidly just dropped me off at work so she could take my truck and go do something. It's kind of crazy. But anyways, Savannah was coming into the world, and we had the due date, and I'm a planner. So I had to know everything out into the future. I'm a planner. So I'm planning my life out. I'm planning my customers. And I had it planned so whenever she came, I had all my customers spaced out where I could have a month with my wife and with my bouncing baby girl. Well, lo and behold, Savannah, and God Almighty, had a different set of plans for us. She came into the world roughly 30 days before plan, just over 30 days, just a month early, right in the middle of a stacked calendar. And I can remember my mom laughing at me and telling me that you thought you had it planned out. Just after she was born, though, we had an issue. We couldn't get her temperature up. So that led us staying in the children's ICU at the Children's Hospital here in East Tennessee for almost 45 days. So not only did she come a month early and I had a stacked calendar, I now find myself as a father, first-time father, and a husband, dealing with a wife who scared to death, me scared to death, a baby whose temperature could not move over about 92, 93 degrees. Doctors and nurses shouting out things that we didn't even understand, using words we'd never heard before. A lot of emotions. And here I am trying to work to feed a family, and I'm trying to be the husband that my wife needs during this time, and I'm trying to be the advisor. And I can remember sitting across the table from somebody, and I began the meeting out like I typically begin a meeting. Hey, how are you? What's going on in your life? Anything new? Anything I need to know about? And I know I had to look weary. I know I was worn down. I had bags underneath my eyes. I have pictures from during those days. I literally had black spatches underneath my eyes from lack of sleep and stress. I'm doing the best I can as a young advisor to work with this individual. And in that moment, as this individual's on the other side of the table, I can remember thinking to myself, they don't care. They don't care. They don't care that my wife and I haven't slept in 30 days. They don't care that my little baby may never come home. They don't care. It was as if that individual was pointing their finger at me and saying, I don't give a flying flip about you. And in that moment, a reality came to me that I don't have to work with this individual. I don't. I don't have to work with you. In that particular moment, I was candid and said, sir, I'm sorry. I can't meet your expectations at this particular point. My baby is in the hospital and I really can't think right now. And without any empathy or any compassion, they began to scold me. If you know what a D personality is, then you know that you don't push a D personality when they're low. They're going to bite back. And I wasn't as worn down as I am now. I wasn't as seasoned in business. I was a young 20-whatever-year-old, had just sold a business, thought I owned the world, and now I find myself at one of the lowest points of my life at that particular point. And candidly, not proud of it, but I snapped. I closed my portfolio on my desk, and I said, sir, I don't have to work with you. And effective immediately, we're done. I got up, and I walked out of that office building and went back to the hospital. Now, am I proud of that moment? No. But I give you that as a backdrop because in my early career, I found that passion is what helps me identify the persona. It's a method that I've used personally to help me figure out who is it that I want to work with? Who is it that I'm most passionate about? I have some friends who love to work with school teachers. They're advisors, and all they do is work with school teachers. I have others that take on a Christian approach. I only work with Christians. I have other friends that only work with the LGBTQ community. I'm sorry, I butchered that. But I have friends who work in all different disciplines. I have friends who only work with medical professionals, MDs. And in that moment, it didn't matter about the person's title. It didn't matter about their designation. It didn't matter about what they were or who they were in life. It was, I wasn't passionate about them and they weren't passionate about me. And so in that particular moment, I came to a resolution that if I'm going to leave my wife and baby in the hospital to work with or for somebody, I want to love the people I'm going to work for. The old adage says, love what you do and you'll never work a day in my life. I found it hard to leave my wife and baby in the hospital. And now, 16 years later, from that particular date removed, I found it hard to leave my wife and kids and farm and friends to work with somebody who doesn't share the same passion that I have. So that's why I'm attracted to business owners. I love business owners in the service industry. I have the passion to work with them. Typically, they're like me. We're built with this energy and this drive to try and reach a particular goal. But for me, defining my persona was first identifying I had to be passionate about, figure out who I was passionate about working for. You say, man, Justin, man, I don't have a story like that. I've never even looked at it in this format. Typically, I look at who provides the most money, you know? That's the second way that you can define your persona is profitability. And there's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to be a touchy-feely guy like me. You don't have to have a story that impacts your life like my daughter in ICU at Children's Hospital wondering if we're even going to bring her home. You can't literally look at your company and say, this type of client provides me the greatest profit. This type of client provides me the greatest return per minute, per hour, per widget, per whatever. There is nothing wrong with that. So perhaps you run an auto repair company and you only want to work on one certain type of vehicle. In East Tennessee, I know an individual, all they work on is Porsche. That's it. I know another company in South Georgia, all they work on is Volkswagens. I know a company in a small town in Georgia that's renowned across Southeast Georgia or South Georgia. All they work on is VW Beetles. That's it. People from all over the country bring their Beetles to that particular Volkswagen company. I know individuals that only work on one type of gun. They're gunsmiths and one type of gun. I know medical professionals that do one type of treatment. Why? Because it's most profitable for them. So to calculate your profitability, you want to do your total project fees minus your project expenses. And that's going to give you your gross profit per project. Again, that's your total fee that you charge minus your fees for that particular project gives you your gross profit per project. Then you can divide your gross profit per project divided by time spent. We often do this with people who rely on time, attorneys, medical doctors, planners, things of that nature, where all they have is a time component that they have to manage. And the more throughput they have within their personal time constraints, the more revenue they make. So we'll take, for example, a dentist, and we'll say, okay, this particular crown is $1,500, whatever the number is, and you can do this in X number of minutes. Therefore, your procedure per minute gives you X dollars. And now we have profitability. So you may look at it and say, man, Justin, I don't have that passion to be able to relate to a particular customer, and profitability really doesn't get me jazzed. Then there's only one other way that I'm aware of that you can help design the persona, and that's the procedural approach. The procedural approach. You notice how I do that alliteration style? We have passion, we have profitability, and then we use procedural approach. The procedural approach is all about finding which customer persona allows you to reach the most people through automations or procedures. Think of it in terms of scalability. I'm reminded of the story of Southwest Airlines, that they have been using the same type of plane since the 70s. It's the Boeing 737. It enables them to standardize their pilot training, their pricing, even the purchasing of fleet equipment in bulk. It even allows them to standardize the maintenance inventory and the maintenance procedures. So the procedure, by using that particular plane, allows them to identify ultimately their perfect customer. You see, if you want a first class, like the classes you can sleep in and they provide you a nice warm, steak dinner while you're on the plane, that's not Southwest. If you want to jump from one small city to another big city, many times that's not Southwest. If you want to take intercontinental flights, not Southwest. Southwest has a particular persona, and their entire business is built around that. This led them to develop the persona that exactly knew would use their particular service. No first class cabins, no small passenger planes from island hopping. They are serving one particular traveler type. And because of that, it allowed them to increase their throughput. It allowed them to minimize the Pareto effect, the rule of 80-20. So friends, as you look at your business, and you're trying to figure out how am I going to increase value? How am I going to increase profitability? You've got to start with the perfect persona. Who is it that you're passionate about? Or which customer provides you the greatest profitability? Or perhaps, just perhaps, which customer will allow you to scale your business to increase throughput? Friends, if you apply this to your particular business and you develop your Frazzled Frank, the same persona that we use here at our company, then you can increase your value dramatically. You can increase profitability. You can cut down on the stress. You can increase throughput. You can reduce the rule of 80-20. You can. And you can build a business that you're proud of, one that releases and reduces some of your stress. So good. Look, friends, I know it's hard to do. I know this is hard work, but it's worth it. And it can be frustrating. It doesn't have to be. Let's continue to make our lives at least financially simple. Hey, y'all go out and make it a great day.